Hello and welcome to AmeriCorps Vista. We are super excited to be with you on your first day of service and glad to have you joining this webinar. My name is Chris Hawks and I'm joined again today by Eric Powell. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Chris, and hello, everyone. As Chris said, I'm Eric Powell, and just like last week, we'll be your hosts today from AmeriCorps. And you will also see our colleagues Charles Wong and Jacob Doney in the chat and the Q&A to assist us during the presentation. All of our staff and webinar support team are monitoring everything to make sure that we can help you throughout the presentation.
And we are also thrilled to have a very special guest with us today. So let me welcome the Director of AmeriCorps Vista, Meg Ansara, who joins us to welcome you on behalf of the AmeriCorps Vista program. Hey, Meg. Hey,
Chris. Hey, Eric. Great to join you. I am so thrilled to be here. Hello to everyone on the phone. It is just my honor and privilege to have a chance to join you today and to formally welcome you to the AmeriCorps Vista program. I also want to just share a few words about the role that I believe VISTA plays in this moment of time. You do not need me to tell you that we are truly living through extraordinary times. None of us could have predicted this current reality, the deaths of more than 600,000 Americans and countless more lives touched in small and large ways by this pandemic. And yet here we are. While the pandemic has caused tremendous harm to our country, we also know that so much of its destruction has exacerbated inequity that has long existed in our country. The journalist Nicholas Kristof recently wrote in a New York Times op-ed, the coronavirus has interacted with half a century of inequality, despair, and dysfunction to shatter those who are already fragile. We see this fragility in the miles-long car lines of people waiting to receive critically needed food. We see this fragility in our children who must overcome significant learning loss and mounting social and emotional health needs. We see this in the thousands who suddenly lost their jobs and must now chart a new and uncertain path forward. With so many individuals, families, and children suffering right now, this is where you and the amazing work of AmeriCorps Vista comes in. I firmly believe that the VISTA program was made for this moment, to work in partnership with communities to concretely help people in need and to build community capacity in ways that will continue to live on well beyond your term of service and the VISTA project itself. Each of you is here for a different reason, but all of you have answered the call to serve, and to do so during this most critical time in our history, something none of us have ever experienced before in our lifetimes. You have stepped up and decided to serve those who are in greatest need. You are all meeting the moment and giving so much in the process. VISTA is built on the belief that the talent, solutions, and potential for positive change exist within communities, and that through your VISTA service, you can help to further catalyze the strength and capacity of the communities you serve. For many of you, this might be your home community or your adopted home community. The American author Willa Cather said, that is happiness, to be dissolved into something complete and great. You are part of a bigger movement to fight against poverty. While sometimes that will be hard to see, know that you and hundreds of other VISTA members are making a difference in communities and lives of individuals all over the nation. But also take care of yourself. Rely on your family, your friends, and your community for advice, for support, and most importantly, for fun. I know that you will accomplish amazing things during your VISTA term of service, and I hope that it will ultimately lead to a lifetime of service. Service can take many different forms, but throughout it all, I hope that you continue to realize your own amazing potential as a positive change maker, as well as recognizing the same potential in others. That truly is the VISTA spirit. Welcome to the VISTA family, which has grown to more than 225,000 individuals since the program's beginning over 50 years ago in 1965. Welcome to the ranks of AmeriCorps, which is more than 1 million people strong. Thank you so much for your service and good luck. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Meg, and thanks for those wonderful comments. And definitely, yeah, want to echo the big welcome to the VISTA family, the AmeriCorps family, to everyone. It's great to hear the inspiring words of welcome for our soon-to-be newest class of AmeriCorps VISTA members once we get to the oath in a bit. So thank you very much, Meg.
Absolutely, and Meg did a great job getting us started and preparing for our agenda today as we think about starting out with how VISTA began in the 1960s. Then we'll cover a few key pieces of your orientation phases. We'll then talk about your service assignments, review some resources, and then we will officially swear you into Federal AmeriCorps service. So let's take a look at our overview of today's session as we look at our agenda items. First and foremost, we've asked you to log on again today to continue to build connections between our AmeriCorps headquarters staff and you, and we'll swear you in officially in just a few minutes. We also know that this webinar is a great way for you to meet other new AmeriCorps members and start to build connections with colleagues across the country. We'll take time today to reinforce some of the important details of your AmeriCorps service. And finally, we want you to leave today's webinar with a really good sense of where to find more answers to questions that you may have. Chris, you want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. It is a pleasure to give you this official welcome to AmeriCorps VISTA and wish you a very happy first day of service. So now we're going to take a look at a few milestones in VISTA's history that led us to this moment. So VISTA is at its core a program that expands economic opportunity to help Americans escape poverty. As complex as poverty is, we know that it takes a wide variety of strategies and dedicated community members to fight it. We look forward to hearing how you and your VISTA project will work on expanding economic opportunity in your community. And VISTA was born out of the civil rights movement and the war on poverty in the mid-1960s, and we remain passionate about the ideals that founded the program and committed to keep investing in and lifting up all communities in this country. Our first VISTAs were assigned in 1965, and they served in Appalachia, in Hartford, Connecticut, and the camps of migrant farm workers in California. At the VISTA program launch, President Lyndon Johnson said to those first VISTAs, "The initials of your organization spell VISTA. It is an appropriate name, for you will be opening up new vistas of hope for the poor, achievement for yourself, and greatness for your nation." And the dedication of VISTA members remains a great hope for this country now. We certainly know that VISTA alone can't fix the systemic barriers and oppression that exists for people in poverty, especially people of color, but we know our work can be a part of any possible solution.
And here you see the AmeriCorps VISTA program structure that we looked at during last week's webinar. You can see the AmeriCorps headquarters on the far left, with the AmeriCorps regional offices next. In the regional offices, AmeriCorps awards VISTA projects to sponsoring organizations, those nonprofits and public agencies that tackle poverty in a variety of projects and diverse communities. Within that organizational structure, VISTA members, project staff, sponsors, and AmeriCorps staff work together to accomplish these types of results. VISTAs raised over $199 million in cash and in-kind donations for their sponsoring organizations. VISTAs recruited, trained, and assigned over 450,000 community volunteers who collectively served more than 3.2 million hours. That's a lot of service. VISTA members made it possible for their sponsors to serve 2 million children living in poverty in after-school programs, tutoring, and assistance in food security. Programs supported by VISTA members supported 373,000 total individuals with opioid programming. And in a single year, over 8,000 VISTA members built the capacity of more than 4,500 nonprofits and public agencies. This is just a snapshot of 1 year of AmeriCorps VISTA service, and we are so proud to support this work all around the country.
And next up, let's take a look at the sponsoring organizations. In the last year, there were 832 sponsoring organizations managing 849 AmeriCorps VISTA projects. Together, the sponsors and project staff placed VISTA members at over 5,000 service sites in 1 year. Of all VISTA service sites, in general, about 15% represent rural communities and 85% represent urban communities. And it's very important to know that there are different types of AmeriCorps VISTA project structures. So some projects place all VISTA members at a single nonprofit or agency. These are what we call single site projects. By contrast, about 16% of projects place members at multiple sites or offices. So it's one project and places members at multiple sites or multiple locations. And then the third project model is what we call an intermediary. What an intermediary is an organization that manages all of the administrative aspects of the AmeriCorps award and then subcontracts with more than one nonprofit organization to recruit, train, and manage VISTA members at multiple locations. And the project models are important because they have a huge impact on every aspect of your AmeriCorps VISTA service. So let's get a sense of the type of projects represented today. We are gonna have a poll pop up to ask, are you serving in a single site project, a multi-site project, or through an intermediary? So we'll just give it a few seconds, make sure everyone can respond. See a bunch of responses already coming in. And there's the option for not sure as well. You know, that's the fourth option. Seeing the results come in, still some popping up. Give it about another 5 seconds because it's slowing down now. And let's see what the results are. Okay, so 48, almost half at a single site. Then a split from multi-site and intermediary, and then about 20% almost not sure. And that's okay. At this point, you may not know the answer to this question. That's totally okay. And if not, what we recommend is to please add it to the list of questions for your supervisor this week to make sure you're really completely aware of the project design or staffing structure and organizational requirements at your project.
As you know, VISTA's mission is to strengthen organizations that alleviate poverty through the mobilization of volunteers and resources. In supporting this mission, there are 4 key program principles that apply to all of VISTA's service. Ending poverty. Every VISTA project and every VISTA member aims to end or alleviate poverty one person, one family, or one neighborhood at a time. Empowering communities. VISTA members live among and involve community members in planning and carrying out their projects. This is often facilitated by VISTA project sponsors, and we all work together to strengthen and improve communities. This is the VISTA program's long-term goal through learning about values and beliefs and applying good community development principles. Creating sustainable solutions. Whatever you develop or create, it might be a process, it could be a system, or maybe you create some other types of resources. You develop them in such a way that people will be able to use them once your VISTA service ends. And finally, building capacity. All VISTA members will increase the size of a project, increase the number of people served, improve the project's efficiency, or improve the project's impact on the community. These are ways that we define capacity and how we think about evaluating the success of our projects and our VISTA members. So let's take a few minutes now to hear from you. Using the chat panel, we'd like you to answer these questions. Which of these 4 key principles resonate most deeply with you and why? And of course, your choices again are eliminating poverty. Maybe that one resonates the most because you really want to take down all the policies and systems that perpetuate it. Maybe it's empowering the community because working with community stakeholders to identify needs and putting those needs into action really is at the heart of who you are. Or maybe sustainability is something that really touches you and drew you to joining AmeriCorps. Maybe you have an eye for processes and developing them in such a way that they can be used once your AmeriCorps service ends. And I saw a few people typing in capacity building is really, really critical to them because they might see a project and they can identify a plan to increase its effectiveness and engage more individuals. So as we look at lots of good responses coming in, and Chris and I greatly appreciate those who are also adding additional context as to why you chose that. Certainly, we don't have time to read every single one of them, but I do see in what seems like an overwhelming amount of people saying empowering communities. There is no wrong answer, but I see a lot of people talking about empowering communities because it's critical to work with community members and stakeholders towards a common goal. It's important to empower communities to do the work that they should be doing already and help them understand how to solve some of their own challenges. And then I saw it's great to empower communities because once you have the community working in unison, you can really find ways to tackle all of these principles. And of course, there's more responses coming in, lots of capacity building. You want to be critical to build the capacity of the community and the organization to end poverty. And there are quite a few that also said ending poverty. Ultimately, that's one of the main goals of the VISTA program. And of course, all of these principles aim together to end poverty. As people said, they all add into each other. So it's great to see these responses, and please feel free to keep those coming in. Again, there is no wrong answer. And the great thing, as all of you already pointed out, all of these are important and all of them are useful. And the fact that these resonate with you, whether one resonates with you, maybe all four resonate with you, it shows that you are a good fit for a VISTA. So hopefully, as you look at what you will be doing as a VISTA member, you'll be able to pinpoint specific activities that touch on some or maybe even all of these key principles. We know that progress in this type of work can be incremental and sometimes it can feel very slow going. It's important to know that our work is not just about fixing stuff. It's about sharing perspectives and skills, because the results of your work as a VISTA member may not be apparent immediately, but once you step back, you'll be able to see the larger changes that have resulted from your work and the impact of your service.
Next up, let's focus now on capacity building and what that looks like. So capacity building can kind of be a hard concept to really define and describe to others. So it's important that we all share a common understanding of this key principle. In the VISTA Mission and Program tutorial that you completed, you learned that your VISTA service should focus on building the capacity of your organization and not focus on performing direct service. Now, this is a unique aspect of the VISTA program, which sets us apart from other AmeriCorps programs. Quickly, capacity building, in essence, is about helping your organization do more with what they have so they can serve more people or operate more efficiently. Direct service is about providing tangible assistance directly to those who need it. So to make sure you understand and really have a good feel for what we're talking about, we are going to play a quick round of this or that to really explore the differences between capacity building and direct service. So for this activity, we'll just ask that you please type your answer in the chat and feel free to use the abbreviations for capacity building or direct service. So between CB or DS, you could just type in the chat as your answer to each of these questions. So first up, we'll start with recruiting volunteers to build houses. So in the chat, please indicate whether you think this is capacity building or direct service. Again, CB or DS is fine. Let's give it a few seconds and see a bunch of responses coming in. Looks like a pretty good mix. overall, a little bit of both, but I would say leaning towards capacity building as the, yeah, now it's starting to be an overwhelming response of capacity building here. But we'll give it another, 5 seconds or so, make sure everyone gets a chance to respond. And start getting a drum roll. Thank you for the responses. The answer here is capacity building. So the majority of you got that correct. And it's capacity building because in this scenario, you're not directly building the house. You're developing capacity by recruiting volunteers who will then be able to do the construction work as well as engage with the organization in other ways. So great job there.
Let's move on to the next one. Delivering meals to seniors or people with disabilities in their homes. Is this capacity building or a direct service? And as you type your answers, I saw a few people commenting saying, oh, I feel silly, or oh, I should have gotten that correct. That's part of the reason why we're doing this. We just want to make sure we're all on the same page and that we're all in alignment with each other so that we know the difference. And when you're looking at your VISTA assignment description, you can get a good feel to make sure that you are doing capacity building service. So delivering meals to seniors and people with disabilities, I'm seeing an overwhelming number of people saying direct service. I think I saw a couple of capacity building, but it looks like most people are skewing to think the answer is direct service. Give it another second or two to see if there's any final responses coming in. And here comes the answer. It is direct service. And I'm sure you already know this, but I'll mention the reason why this example is direct service, because in this example, you would actually be physically picking up food and delivering it to people. In contrast, there are some capacity building activities that a VISTA member might do around this type of instance, such as working to improve a senior meal delivery program, or putting together policies and procedures, or perhaps maybe even developing partnerships to help with food delivery.
Okay, next up, how about teaching a financial literacy course to low-income individuals? What do you think about that for capacity building or direct service? Coming in real fast, the responses here. Yeah, and it still looks, there's a bit of a mix, but overwhelmingly direct service, I would say. Thank you for these responses and for the quick responses because you're coming in fast. But a few capacity building thrown in. Okay, so give it another couple seconds and then we will present the answer. So the correct response here is direct service. Great job. Most of you got that correct. And that's because in this example, it involves hands-on educating individuals. So in contrast, something, a capacity building activity that a VISTA would do would be something like developing the curriculum for the financial literacy course, or connecting with other organizations who can refer clients to take the course, or maybe identifying financial literacy experts to advise the curriculum development. Things like that would be capacity building. So great job on that.
And don't be too sad, but this is our final example. So just deal with it. What do you think about this one? Organizing a fundraiser. Hopefully this one is fairly easy, but again, we'll give you several seconds to type in your response. Organizing a fundraiser, do you think it's capacity building or a direct service? People are very quick to respond. Ooh, some people are clever saying it's direct service and capacity building. Well, we'll explain the answer in a minute, but give a few more people to respond. I see a couple of direct service coming in. Capacity building. Some people seem like they're either unsure or they're certain it's neither or both. So let's see what the answer is. In this example, the correct answer is capacity building. And that's specific because the act of raising resources is building capacity. We could see how you might confuse this with direct service because you're raising money, but the act of raising resources in and of itself is building capacity because the money that's raised build the resources of the organization so it can do its work. So thank you all of those for all your responses on those scenarios. We really hope this was a fairly quick and simple exercise and that it provides a clear distinction between capacity building and direct service as you start your year of service. Looking back at our agenda, so far we've looked at some of the really important aspects of the VISTA program to help you build out your understanding and your ability to answer the "What is VISTA?" question. Next, we're going to quickly review several key tasks to complete during your VISTA member orientation. Here's another look at the structure of your VISTA member orientation, or VMO. As we discussed last week, there are 3 phases, and whether you're physically on site or teleserving, the structure is the same. And as a reminder, you were invited to participate in an online name-based criminal history background check prior to your start of service. If you have not yet submitted the required information for the background check and/or did not receive the email notification with instructions to complete the check, please make sure today you send an email to vistafingerprint@cns.gov immediately. And that email is in the chat, so if you need to email them, do that as soon as the webinar is over. And also, just as kind of a refresher from last week's webinar, we're going to give you a couple of quick review questions regarding specific benefits. In just a second, you'll see a poll open on your screen, and we're going to ask you to indicate true or false. It'll be a very quick poll, so for this question, again, the answer is true or false. And as you can see, the question is, federal taxes are withheld from your living allowance, but state taxes are not. Certainly, I see some of you have been typing in the chat, which is great. The poll is now open on the screen, so you can type it in that way. And if you can't access the poll, feel free to use the chat. But just another couple of seconds to quickly see if you think the answer to this is true or false based on what you've heard us talk about last week and based on the benefits that you've studied and learned on the AmeriCorps.gov website. 2 more seconds. And we'll close the poll. Looks like most people have responded, and most people say the answer is true. Let's look at the answer. The answer is true. Federal taxes are withheld from your living allowance, but state taxes are not. And remember, you are responsible for determining if you will owe any state taxes by checking in with your local tax preparer. Okay, just a couple more for you.
Okay, so for this one, we'll use the chat. So in the chat, please take a moment to fill in the blank. If you originally elect the Education Award, you may change to the cash stipend at any time before the end of your blank month of service. So yeah, we'll give a second to enter in the chat. And already seeing a bunch of responses come in. I see a true. A bunch say 10 or 10th. Saw someone say last month. 10th with a question mark. Another true. First month. So if you, yeah, a couple there saying first month. We'll give it a few more seconds. Make sure everyone gets a chance. Another. So it looks like it's between. First, 10th, or last month, although the majority are saying 10th month. So let's take a look at the answer. And yeah, majority of you got that correct. It is the 10th month. If you select the Education Award, you can switch to the cash stipend. But the reverse isn't true. If you select the cash stipend, that's final. But if you select the Education Award, you can change up until the 10th month. So great job on that. And we've got one more for you.
So we're going to use the poll feature again, so it'll show up in just a second. I know you're waiting in eager anticipation to see it, but we're going to ask you another quick question, and it is, if you currently have or have completed enrollment in other primary healthcare coverage outside of AmeriCorps, the healthcare allowance is for you. Obviously, select yes or no. Hopefully, many of you have taken a look at the specific details around the healthcare benefits because there's a lot of very important and specific information you need to know to help you know which benefit to select. So we'll give you just a couple more seconds. Looks like a large amount of people have responded. Again, it's just a quick yes or no. And we will go ahead and see what the answer is. The answer is yes. And please remember, again, you want to take time to look at the details of the VISTA healthcare benefit on the AmeriCorps.gov website. You can also go to the International Medical Group website. In that way, you can help determine which of the two benefits applies to your situation. So thank you again for your responses. This will be helpful in selecting questions to answer during our question and answer time later in the presentation.
Okay, now let's talk about some important issues that you learned about in the Civil Rights and Responsibilities course on the VISTA campus. The AmeriCorps VISTA program takes very seriously the issues of discrimination and harassment, so we want to make sure you're all aware of your rights as well as your responsibilities. As you learned, discrimination is when receiving treatment that is different because of a difference in sex, race, or any other protected class. Harassment is behavior that is severe or pervasive and creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. If you believe that you have experienced or witnessed discrimination or harassment, and if you feel safe and comfortable doing so, here are the steps you should take. First, approach and talk directly to the person you suspect of engaging in harassing or discriminating behavior. If that does not work, or if you do not feel safe and comfortable doing so, you should speak with your supervisor. If you cannot go to your supervisor, or maybe you do and the matter is not resolved to your satisfaction, you should contact your AmeriCorps regional office. And then finally, you can contact the AmeriCorps Equal Opportunity Program, or EOP. Rights go hand in hand with responsibilities. So while you have the right to a service experience that is free from harassment and discrimination, you also have the responsibility not to subject anyone to harassment or discrimination. So please be conscious of how your words and actions might be perceived by others, whether fellow AmeriCorps members, staff at your site, or community members. And as a reminder, the contact information that you see on this slide is also included in the VISTA member handbook on AmeriCorps.gov. So you can access that contact information at any time through the handbook. And AmeriCorps VISTA is a federal program, and like anything supported by taxpayer funds, we need to ensure that the program is well run, doing what it's supposed to, and spending money wisely. Like all federal agencies, AmeriCorps has an inspector general whose office is responsible for preventing and detecting waste, fraud, and abuse. Most VISTA sponsors are familiar with the rules around allowable service activities and those that are prohibited. And it is important for all of us to pay close attention to these. Now, there are a few red flags that we want you to be aware of. So for starters, if you're being asked to take over the work of a staff person, for example, someone who is out on extended leave, that is considered replacing staff and it's not allowed. Or if most of what you're doing is admin or administrative support for someone else, that's also not appropriate work for a VISTA member. VISTAs and yourselves should be focusing on the things outlined in your VISTA Assignment Description, or VAD, which ties directly to the overall project plan that was approved by AmeriCorps initially. And then finally, the majority of your work should be capacity building, not direct service. Now, from your coursework and in today's activities, where most of you did great on those and got almost all of them correct, you should have a great idea how to distinguish between the two, between the capacity building and direct service. So please just pay close attention and follow up if you're unsure or if there's some gray area about your service assignments. And if you feel you're being asked to do things that are not appropriate for VISTA members, first, talk about it with your supervisor. From there, you can talk with your AmeriCorps regional office. And if the issue isn't resolved, or if you wish to remain anonymous, you can contact the AmeriCorps Office of Inspector General with the information you see on this slide right here. And again, this info is also included in the VISTA member handbook on AmeriCorps.gov if you ever need to access this contact information for the Inspector General.
So now let's take another look at the in-service phase of your VISTA member orientation. Today, your first day of service, you are starting your on-site orientation and training, what we call your OSOT, OSOT, and that's led by your supervisor and your project site. Also, there are several online tutorials that we ask all VISTAs to complete early in their service. They are self-directed and they're intended to help you start strong in your project. They are all located at the end of the VISTA member orientation and learning path that you joined on the VISTA campus. By now, you've gone through most of the modules and activities in the learning path, and if you scroll down the learning path, you will locate the on-site orientation and training and recommended early service coursework modules to complete these activities. First, under the on-site orientation and training module, or OSOT, we've provided a guide to help you make the most of your on-site orientation and training. Then you will see 6 activities under the recommended early service coursework module. There's a worksheet to help you unpack your VISTA assignment description and use it as a foundation for your work plan for the year. The early service coursework includes a tutorial on how to understand the community you are serving by looking at demographic data and research. The minute intro exercise helps you clearly and succinctly explain to others who you are and what you are doing as a VISTA. The resource on theories of change looks at various ideas about what causes poverty and theories on how to reduce or eliminate it. There's also a very helpful video explaining how poverty is measured in the United States. And finally, there's a powerful video that shares 13 lessons about poverty that came out of the VISTA program. The worksheets and resources are intended to dovetail nicely with your on-site orientation and training, and they can provide structure for the first few meetings with your supervisor. We're now going to turn our attention to your specific service and the document that rules it all, your VISTA Assignment Description, or VAD. As we discussed on last week's webinar, each member has a VAD that was created by the AmeriCorps project. You may have reviewed it during the interview and selection process, or maybe your supervisor gave it to you today. If not, you can download it from your My AmeriCorps portal account. All VISTA assignment descriptions include these 3 elements: a project goal, objectives, and member activities. The project goal is related to or identical to the overall goal of your AmeriCorps project. The objectives describe what you will achieve by the end of your service year. They are a bridge between the project goal and the member activities. And the member activities specify what you will be doing this year. Those activities add up to the objectives, and the objectives add up to the goal. Because the VISTA assignment description is the starting point for you to develop your work plan for the year, we strongly recommend that you focus on it with your supervisor in the first couple of weeks of your service, and keep it in mind as you move throughout your year of service. We know from our experience that it's not uncommon that adjustments may need to be made to VADs at some point during the year, maybe because they need to reflect new activities, and certainly something like that can be especially true given the current situation with coronavirus impacting so many parts of our lives. As we mentioned earlier, there is a VAD worksheet that is part of your early service coursework on the VISTA campus. This worksheet provides a nice framework for you and your supervisor to discuss your tasks step by step.
Okay, now we'd like to hear from you again. So based on what you know about your VISTA assignment description, or VAD, what will you be doing as an AmeriCorps member? So what steps or tasks or activities will you be doing to help eradicate poverty and build capacity in your community and in your organization? So again, we'll give this a moment so you can type your answer in the chat. And again, please, especially for this activity, please be sure you selected or toggled it so that you're sending your message to all panelists and attendees, or to everyone, it might say. That way everyone can view these responses. And this can also be just a couple of words or a brief sentence, if you like, however long you wish. And give it a moment, see a few answers coming in. Starting to go faster now. Try to grab my chat so it isn't moving too fast. So we see some volunteer coordinator for post-secondary education, building capacity to feed more of our neighbors in Missouri. That's great, Lisa. Help with the rollout of a new service database in Massachusetts. Another program, development for food program. Quite a few here I'm looking at for food access. Is certainly needed and appreciated. Addressing issues within the education system, working with community partners to increase awareness of the Sacramento Promise Zone. Great job, Hannah. Love these, coming in super fast. More on quite a few on education as well, coordinating college student service opportunities with community partners, empowering women and the LGBTQ communities, volunteer management, and starting up Swipe Out Hunger. Community partnerships again, it's a few times we've seen partnerships. Yes, definitely. Love it, love the responses. After school tutoring programs, another food wellness at a food pantry. Yes, love these. Please, please, please keep these coming. This is one of my favorite parts of the VISTA member orientation, is seeing all the work that VISTAs will be doing. On your first day of service, it's so great. And it's obvious that many of you have, really dived into your VAD. Others, maybe not so much yet. Maybe you're going to spend these first couple of weeks with your supervisor really diving into your VAD, but yeah, it's obvious in some of these responses how detailed, and you really know what you're going to start tackling. So yeah, thanks for these responses. Love it, love it. Please keep them coming. If you're mid-typing one, definitely keep it coming. It's remarkable to see the wide variety of responses and really just how much you will be doing this year. So thank you so much. And with those really wonderful things mentioned in the chat, we want to take this discussion a bit further. So what we want to do is let's talk about what happens as a result of your service. So a community meeting. We saw, well, a lot on community partnerships, but for example, what if you plan a community meeting? So if you bring people together around a common issue, what is the impact of that activity?
And what if you write grants? How will writing a grant actually make a difference in your community?
Or for recruiting volunteers. So what if you recruit volunteers for your project? So why specifically is it important to have other people help with your projects?
And then what if your VAD has you writing a lesson plan or putting together curriculum? What purpose does this lesson plan achieve, and how will it actually impact others within your community? Really what we want to know, the big question we're asking is, what if? And we ask this because we want you to reflect on why you are serving, which you probably have already been doing, but we really want you to take a deep moment of time to think about the reason behind your activities and the purpose of the things that you are doing, because that'll help you understand and stay focused on the intended impact of your AmeriCorps service. So as you think about your own what if when answering this next question, we ask, what impact do you hope to make as a VISTA member? And by impact, we mean what will be the end result rather than what will your activities look like? What will happen in your community when you are successful? We ask you to keep thinking about this question, not just today and in your first week, but as you go into your year of service, because our work is never done. It's a lot of work to try to eliminate poverty and build capacity, and you are a significant part of the battle against poverty. We're all in this together, And so keeping the impact you make in mind can really help you get through the tough times when you feel that you may not be making a difference. So in the chat panel, as we just mentioned, thinking about what is the actual impact that'll happen in your community. See a couple of responses coming in, hoping to expand the reach of my host site organization. And some of these are fabulous responses, and I would encourage you, not just on the webinar, but to think about going even deeper to say, we want to expand the reach, but how will expanding the reach make a difference? Improving the lives of people in the areas of my community with high poverty. Making students realize that they have options and resources to improve their mental health. Wanting a better idea of what to do to achieve in my community through my career path before I commit to future education, which also relates to getting other people in the community more education and more access to information. Wonderful. Getting into the even more specific, more children will attend school and be able to be engaged in learning. That's a direct impact. Better success for students. A lot of VISTA members in this VISTA member orientation are working with students in schools, and we know education is a critical piece of eliminating poverty. And just a couple of more. My organization will be able to reach more volunteers to help impact the low-income community, helping create a solid and sustainable funding stream within the education system to help more disadvantaged students come out of poverty. And then one more that I saw was increasing broader access to food in the community. So it's great to see these responses. As Chris said, it's very inspiring to see not just the work that you're actually going to be doing and starting to do today, but really the impact that you hope to make as a VISTA member, but also as a larger VISTA project. It's amazing. And of course, looking at all these responses coming in from around the country, we really hope that this also inspires you to see the comments from your VISTA colleagues across the country and all that they'll be doing. Some of them are similar to what you're doing, some may be different, but it truly is amazing. So thank you again for stepping up to serve as a VISTA member.
Agreed, Eric. Love the comments and love the chats, and then keep them coming. If you're mid-typing, please keep them coming in. So with those great outcomes and activities and projects and communities in mind, we're looking at our agenda, and it's time to make you official AmeriCorps VISTA members. So you may remember from the introductions and last week's Countdown to VISTA Service webinar that we are all located in different communities. Eric and I are working at home in Maryland, and here's a quick look at where you're serving across the country. So imagine, if you will, all of these AmeriCorps faces on screen with you taking the oath together. So let's discuss the oath of service. I was just looking at that map, a little blank on western side, but that's just with the scheduling. I think in a couple of weeks there's a lot of projects in those states, but East and Midwest representing, woohoo. But let's discuss the oath of service. So the oath of service is a required and important step in becoming an AmeriCorps member. And because of its importance, we are pausing the chat to focus on the oath. If you have any questions at this time, you could type them in the Q&A. You can continue to type those, and our team will either answer them as soon as we can or hold them for the end of the webinar.
And before we get into the fun part and the really amazing part of the oath, we do have some important things to discuss. And one of them is, of course, we need to make sure that we document that you are taking your oath today. So it's not available right now, but we'll talk about it later on. There will be a very short form in the My AmeriCorps portal available for you to submit. And we'll talk about the details in a minute. But it is good to know that this is a very quick process, but we do have some important instructions to help you complete the oath form accurately and timely. So first, I will mention, once we end today's webinar, you will receive an automated email, and it goes to the email in your My AmeriCorps account. And that email will state that your electronic oath has been unlocked in My AmeriCorps. At that time, you'll log into your account and complete and submit your form. If for some reason you do not see the email after 15 minutes or so after the webinar, Then you can just go ahead and log into your My AmeriCorps account and look for the form. Just keep in mind, if you are already logged in initially, you may have to log out and log back in for the form to appear. Second, the instructions for completing this form are actually quite simple, so it's a very easy step for you, and it must be done correctly. So Chris and I will go over these simple instructions slowly, and you may want to take a picture of the screen that we show you with the instructions, but it's so worth the extra few minutes here to make sure you get this done right today. Finally, please know that if anything is missing on the form, it will delay your enrollment as an AmeriCorps member, and it will delay your first living allowance payment, and we really don't want that to happen. And of course, since we're part of the federal payroll system, it could take a few additional weeks to correct that error. So again, we just can't emphasize this enough. Please pay close attention to the instructions, write them down, take a picture of it, because it has a great deal of importance on your enrollment. So without further ado, here are the instructions. For the date of your first day of service at your project site, you will enter today's date, 08/02/2021, in that order, month, day, year. For the name of the CNCS or AmeriCorps official who administered and witnessed the oath, you'll enter Chris Hawks. Chris is spelled like you normally spell it, CHRIS. And with his last name, please note the spelling HAWKES. In the electronic signature field, you will type your full legal name, and that should be the same name that you have in your My AmeriCorps application and what is on file in my.americorps.gov. So if you change your name or have any questions, make sure the name you type in this electronic signature field is what shows up in your my.americorps.gov account. The fourth step, very easy, you check the box under the electronic signature to verify that it is a legal signature on the electronic oath form. In the fifth instruction, very important, but people forget, make sure you click submit. I know, again, this is pretty straightforward and it seems simple, but people miss a lot of these steps. So please be sure to capture these details and have them handy when we log off today's webinar.
Okay, and now that the logistics are out of the way, let's consider the oath you're about to take. Now, this is the same oath taken by all federal employees up to and including the vice president, whereas the president's oath is a little bit different. And in the oath, it includes the phrase, to defend the Constitution of the United States. So if we look at the word defend, this is not a call to arms. For some, in some positions, it may be. But for most of us, defense of the Constitution may be just the opposite of using arms. We're pledging to defend the document that contains our civil rights. It also includes the phrase, against all enemies. And if we look at the word enemies, in the context of VISTA, the enemy is poverty. And here on this slide, you can see the original oath on the left, along with an alternative version on the right side of your screen. The alternative provides two changes that you may prefer. First, you may replace the word swear with the word affirm if you so choose. And you may omit the phrase, so help me God, at the end of the oath if you'd like. And I want to recognize that since we're all in different locations all around the country, scattered in so many sites and so many locations and communities, that we don't have the benefit of hearing each other's voices as we recite this. But it's pretty cool to know that you're taking the oath with about 300 of your fellow AmeriCorps members, all doing this at the same thing at the same time all across America. And I know it may seem a little awkward, maybe, to recite the oath aloud if maybe you're alone in a room right now, or maybe you're on site and you have a new colleague next to you, or maybe you're teleserving and you have a family member or a roommate near you. But that's okay. Just remember that we're all right here with you. Don't make it awkward. This is a great moment. So with that being said, please raise your right hand and recite the oath with me. Now I'm going to read the alternative oath, and I'm going to just read it slowly. So just try to recite it along with me or by repeating. I do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So, woohoo! Yay! Felicidades! Congratulations! This is great! Yay! You are now an AmeriCorps VISTA member. It's official. So, congrats on joining the newest group of AmeriCorps VISTA members. So exciting! Love it. Always love this part. And on this slide, so again, you know, as for the oath form. So you took the oath. You still have to complete the form. This is a screenshot to see what it will look like in the portal. You won't see it yet. You won't see it yet if you happen to be logged in, as Eric mentioned. The oath form will be available about 15 minutes after we log off this webinar. But just wanted to show this slide so you can see the link where it will appear in your My AmeriCorps account. And again, to make sure you have the correct details to complete that form, just quickly to review the electronic oath instructions that Eric mentioned. So you'll enter today as your official first day of AmeriCorps VISTA service, 8/2/2021. Then type my name, Chris Hawks, in the field labeled name of CNCS or AmeriCorps official who administered the oath. Sign under AmeriCorps VISTA member's e-signature by typing in your name, and then check the box under electronic signature to constitute the e-signature as your legal signature on the oath form. And submit the oath no later than 11:59 p.m. your time today. So please note also that you will not get a response confirming submission of the oath form, but you will be able to see the submitted oath in your My AmeriCorps account. You'll see a little date stamp of the submitted oath. But the VISTA Member Support Unit will certainly contact you if we do not receive your oath form or if any corrections are needed.
We are so excited to have you as part of our AmeriCorps and our VISTA program family. And before we log off, we have a few final agenda items, and then we'll answer some questions. So first, we want to remind you that the renovated VISTA campus has what we call a social site named Vista Connect that you can use to reach out to your AmeriCorps colleagues. You can use the forums to discuss best practices, share resources, connect with your colleagues, and share your experiences. It really is a great way for you to connect with the VISTA members that are in this webinar, as well as other VISTAs across the country. It's an awesome place to go. So I strongly recommend later today or later this week, just explore it and see what it has to offer. And speaking of things to offer, let's talk about identifying with your fellow VISTAs and the AmeriCorps program overall. One of the greatest things about being part of VISTA is really showing off your AmeriCorps pride and connecting with other members, because you never know where you may make a connection with someone who knows about the program. So you may want to consider putting the AmeriCorps logo on your business cards if you have them, or in your email signature. Maybe see if your supervisor can put it on your organization's website and brochures. In reality, the more visible that you are, the more support you may be able to get for your project and for the AmeriCorps VISTA program as a whole. That means more AmeriCorps members in communities doing the work that we need to get done. On the AmeriCorps.gov website, you can find AmeriCorps logos, publications, and gear to use in your office and represent AmeriCorps in the field. And you'll see in the chat in a couple of seconds a few additional links that you can access to find those resources. Also, during your service, you will receive instructions on how to order your free AmeriCorps gear. This free gear includes an AmeriCorps polo shirt, lapel pin, tote bag, t-shirt, water bottle, and journal. The ordering instructions will be sent to your email, so this is one of the many reasons why we tell you to please make sure that the email address you have in your My AmeriCorps account is up to date and one that you check on a fairly regular basis. Finally, please make sure that you share any service or training photos with AmeriCorps headquarters and your fellow AmeriCorps members through the official AmeriCorps Twitter and Facebook accounts. We love to see, share, and retweet your stories and photos. I probably said that incorrectly because clearly I don't use social media a lot, but you know what I mean. We love to see what you have to share, and we love to share it with others as well. So please keep in touch with us and other AmeriCorps members using our social media accounts.
And if you have any questions throughout your year, we strongly recommend reviewing the AmeriCorps VISTA Member Handbook. The handbook is an excellent resource with detailed information about your VISTA service, your benefits, VISTA policies and procedures, and a whole lot more. There's a lot of detail there. And you can find the handbook on AmeriCorps.gov at any time during your year of service. We'll drop a link in the chat. Yep, it looks like, yeah, Steve just dropped a link in the chat to it if you'd like to access it now. But again, it's on AmeriCorps.gov at any point. And looking a little further ahead as you settle into your AmeriCorps year, be on the lookout for networks of current AmeriCorps members and alumni in your area. They may be organized by AmeriCorps programs or state commissions, and you can find contacts at AmeriCorpsAlums.org. And along with building your AmeriCorps network, there will also be a number of training opportunities this year to help you continue to develop professionally. Our VISTA training unit staff deliver a series of monthly webinars for AmeriCorps VISTA members, leaders, and project supervisors and new sponsor staff. Upcoming webinars will be listed on the VISTA campus calendar, notated by a little blue dot on the VISTA campus calendar. We'll notate when an upcoming webinar is coming. And we'll also send out an email inviting you to register for topics you may be interested in. And before we get to the Q&A, please, again, ask that you take just a few moments to give us feedback on the webinar. We do constantly review the content. We try to make updates and make it better for new AmeriCorps members. And we have a couple other orientations coming up. The summer is pretty big, so we take your feedback into account and really try to improve upon it as much as possible. So we look forward to your feedback, and I want to thank you in advance. There's a link that will be dropped in the chat for the survey, and also as you close out of Zoom, for most of you, it should automatically pop up. I think on a couple of devices it does not, so you have to click the link in the chat. Thanks in advance on that. And looking at our agenda, next up, let's take a few moments to go over the answers to some of your questions that have come in. So let me open up the Q&A. And as I'm opening it up, Eric, I didn't know if you had a chance or if you'd seen any questions that either are in the Q&A now or maybe popped up earlier that you think we should definitely address.
I do, thank you. And I'll start with this one, which actually will probably lead me into briefly answering a few other questions because they're all encompassed. But the overarching question was, when will my service term be activated? Which actually relates to a few other questions. So I'll quickly say, after the webinar is over and once you successfully complete and submit your electronic oath form, the VISTA Member Support Unit makes sure that all of your required pre-work is done, and if that's taken care of, and if your oath is done correctly, usually everything is activated in your system within a week. It sometimes happens a lot quicker, but we just tell you to expect that it could take a week. And when we say the term activated, it really just means that you're in our payroll system. It means that you'll then have access to the links in your My AmeriCorps account to submit a loan forbearance request if you have a loan. It also means that there were some questions that came in about trying to access the healthcare through the International Medical Group, and some people tried to do it now, and it says basically access denied. And that's because since you have not yet been activated in our system, the International Medical Group doesn't have you listed as an officially serving AmeriCorps VISTA member. That'll all happen again within about a week or so. And specifically with the International Medical Group, they will send you an email once everything's all set in their system that'll give you instructions as to how to go to their website and select your healthcare benefit. But the activation also includes, in about a week, you'll have access to your service letters, plural, in your My AmeriCorps account and everything. So it's kind of an all-encompassing question, but I appreciate it because it's important for you to know, even though today's your first day of service, it takes time to make sure that everything is all well and set. And the VISTA member support unit will contact you if they have any questions or if anything is missing.
Thanks, Eric. I was actually just, that last part I was just going to mention because the question came in about, will someone notify me if I don't have all my forms in? And yes, we will. We will notify you and let you know. And kind of on that note, there were a couple of questions also on Vista Gear that Eric was just discussing. So yeah, that'll be in a few weeks. I think like about 3 weeks into your year of service, you'll get an email about ordering Vista Gear. So it'll have instructions for how to do so and what to select. So look out for that email and a few weeks into your year of service. And also kind of as a follow-up to the International Medical Group, and I saw a question on the health benefits. And it's a question that comes up, maybe doesn't apply to everyone. Well, I know it won't apply to everyone, but it is somewhat common in terms of someone's insurance changing in the middle of their year of service. So the example here in this question was, I'm turning 26 and I'm going to be off my parents' insurance. So my whole situation is going to change mid-year. What can I do with the Vista health benefit? It's a great question. And yes, you can change from the healthcare allowance to the health benefit plan in that scenario, or vice versa. If you were to pick up insurance mid-year, you could switch one to the other. All you have to do though is just, contact IMG, International Medical Group. That's the healthcare administrator who's going to be contacting you in about a week. If you need to change anything, just let them know. Ideally with a bit of a heads up, like if you're turning 26 or something's coming up in about in a few weeks, they would love to have a heads up of ideally maybe a month so that they can get all the paperwork squared away to get you switched over, and so everything's seamless. That might not always be possible. They understand that, we understand that, but if possible, a heads up is always great there.
Definitely, and a follow-up response to a comment we mentioned earlier. Sorry for the confusion. So, when we talked about the oath form would be available about 15 minutes after the webinar. Sometimes what happens is you might be able to see the link, but because of the way the system is built and all the behind-the-scenes stuff going on, it might take 15 minutes before you can actually type into it. So don't worry, it'll be there. Again, it'll take 15 minutes or so, but you might be able to see the link now, but you may not be able to type in because the system, it's a little bit slow when you have a large number of people and it's trying to unlock all the oaths at the same time. So just keep that in mind. The other question I was going to answer, there are quite a few questions around the Vista campus. Just a quick comment around the courses that you took. A lot of people said, oh, I took the course a couple weeks ago or a couple of days ago, and now when I log in, it shows 0% or 10%. Don't worry about that. It's not a glitch. What happened was we made a couple of updates to some of the courses, some slight updates, and so that ended up behind the scenes resetting the system to say 0%. But what you really want to look for in your Vista Campus account is you should see a green check mark in a circle next to it to say it's done. The percentage isn't that critical for us because we can see on our end if it's complete or not. So thank you for mentioning that, but have no fear. If you had already completed it before, we know it's in the system. It's all good. And
Thanks, Eric. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say one other question I saw that I think applies to a few people is, or I should say a lot of people, is there were a couple of questions about the VISTA Assignment Description, and some people saying, oh, I think my VAD in my AmeriCorps account is wrong, or I think part of it is incorrect. If that's the case, your best and first point of contact is your direct supervisor. So you might want to send them an email today, or if you're on site, set up a meeting with them this week just to make sure. There are times where sometimes they accidentally upload the wrong VAD, or it could be the correct VAD, but there might be a few errors. But your supervisor either was the person who wrote your VAD, or they should at least know who wrote the VAD and be able to make changes if necessary. So be sure to check in with your supervisor if you have any questions about your VAD, including if you think your VAD is wrong.
And yeah, I know Charles is answering a couple of questions in the queue right now. Here is one on, assuming we've completed all coursework and forms. Yeah, this relates to what Eric was saying. If we've completed all coursework and forms, are there any additional required webinars or trainings that we must attend this week? Great question. And required webinars or trainings from VISTA? No. That being said, your project may very well have, and likely will have, some required either trainings or webinars for you at your site, but from VISTA headquarters, no additional trainings this week. We do have the recommended early service coursework that's at the end of the VISTA member orientation learning path that Eric was talking about. Some of you may have already chosen to complete that. That's totally fine. We recommend that early service coursework during the first couple of weeks of service, but it's not required. It's there for your benefit. You don't have to turn it in or anything. It's really there to help tie into your on-site orientation and training at your site.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, I know we were going through and we saw quite a few questions earlier about benefits. I know we talked about quite a few of them, but remember that if you do have specific questions about your benefits, the best place to go is the benefits section of AmeriCorps.gov. That's where you can get a list of the benefits. You can reach out to, if you have healthcare questions, you can reach out to the International Medical Group. We just want to make sure that some people do have very specific questions or scenarios that don't apply to everyone. So it's a little bit easier for you to get the specific answer you need from that information, those resources.
Hey, looking down, I don't see a ton more questions. Feel free to keep them coming though. Even if we move on past this Q&A section, we'll continue to answer questions in the Q&A if any pop up. I know, yeah, Charles is answering that Eric already responded. Question for Matthew on the recommended trainings. Are they optional? Yep, the recommended early service coursework is optional. Yes, you're not required to. Again, it's just something we recommend during your first couple of weeks of service. Eric, do you see any others in the Q&A?
I do not, but I will very quickly say, because Chris is on the line, I'm going to plug the monthly VISTA webinar series. Look out for emails in the coming weeks about fabulous AmeriCorps VISTA webinars that are free and they're part of your VISTA service. You're welcome to register for them and join them, but Chris does an amazing job conducting and facilitating webinars for your professional development and for your service. So look forward to those very soon.
Absolutely.
Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Eric. Well, one question I don't see here, but one question that commonly does come up on the first day of service is it's addressed in the FAQ document that was sent last week, but it's with regards to timesheets. It's a common question that comes up. and that's all handled at your project, just as a reminder. So you don't have to complete that in your My AmeriCorps account or anything like that. It's something you should, just speak with your supervisor this week to determine how time is tracked. And that's the same as with your hours of leave or days of leave, where you have 10 personal and 10 medical throughout your year of service. That's tracked by your supervisor. So you don't have to submit anything in My AmeriCorps or anything like that.
Yeah, I think Charles and Jacob had answered the question I was going to answer, so I don't see a whole lot more.
Okay. Yeah, same here. But again, I would say if there are additional questions, by all means, please continue to submit those in the Q&A. Again, we can continue to answer those directly in the Q&A. But since there aren't any at the moment, we'll, or at least aren't any that Charles isn't already tackling, we'll continue on. So thanks for the questions, and thanks for all the participation today and the activities and the chat questions. Love it, I love it. And we hope today's discussion really helped you build some new connections and clarify some of the complexity of starting your AmeriCorps VISTA service, and helped you know where to find information quickly. That's, we want to make sure you know where you can go to follow up, dive into the details, and find information both now and throughout your year of service. And of course, we have sworn you in as an official AmeriCorps VISTA member, so welcome to the VISTA fam. And before we depart, we want to leave you with one more quote from President Johnson. This was also shared at the launch of the VISTA program. On your idealism and on your success rests much of our hope for the final elimination of poverty in our American life. And to that, I would add that your service and commitment to community change as an AmeriCorps VISTA gives me hope that our country can eliminate poverty and the injustices that cause and perpetuate it. Thank you so much for serving as an AmeriCorps VISTA, and thank you so much for your participation today and throughout this pre-service. We wish you all the success in the world this year, and appreciate you stepping up to serve your community. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This will conclude today's webinar. Again, Charles, Jake, Eric, and I will hang on to answer a few questions in the Q&A directly, but this concludes the webinar, and thank you for your service.